Well, good morning again, Hueneme Chamber. Thank you again all so much for being here. Who, quick show of hands, who's this their first time that they've ever stepped inside the Navy CB Museum? All right, well, welcome. We are very honored and privileged to be here today in a place where we can meet some new friends, reconnect with some old friends, and hopefully strengthen relationships within the community. For those of you that I've not personally met, my name is Tracy Sisson Phillips. I am the CEO of the Hueneme Chamber of Commerce, and we are honored this morning to present to you the annual State of the Navy address delivered by Captain Larry Vasquez from Naval Base Ventura County. Captain Vasquez is a native of Bronx, New York, and graduated from Bronx High School of Science, and earned his bachelor's degree in business administration and finance from, oh, I'm going to mess this one up, Baruch College, City University of New York. He earned his master's degree in public administration from the John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. Nothing better than a military man that understands the business community. Although trained as a helicopter pilot, Captain Vasquez's missions during his 25 years in the Navy have included leading a provincial reconstruction team in Afghanistan, serving on the Chief of Naval Operations Staff, and being named personal and administrative aide to the Secretary of the Navy. You're not here to hear me talk, you're here to hear from the man that's leading our military force here in Ventura County, Captain Vasquez.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation to be with you this morning. This is not my first time in the CB Museum. I've been here several times for several events, and I want to personally thank Laura, who's the museum director. She's done great things with the museum. It gets better every day. I know Bob Quinn had a big role in getting this thing started, and truly one of I think 10 or 11 museums within our Navy inventory, and just a tribute to the huge efforts of the CBs around the world. So it's an honor to be here with you. I also, in my bio, thanks Tracy for talking about the Bronx High School of Science with Bob here. At Brooklyn Tech, we were rivals back in New York, so that was not a dig. That's in all the bios.
I know. It must have been nice going to the second best high school in New York.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to give you an overview of your Navy, our Navy, today. Also talk to you a little bit about Ventura County, the naval base last year, what you can expect going into 2014, and then take your questions. I also understand there's a re-enlistment around 8:30. So a sailor is going to come into this museum and raise his right hand and swear an oath to the Constitution, and we take that very seriously. So if I'm not done, I'm going to ask for indulgence, and we'll probably pause for that when that re-enlistment is taking place. Okay. Okay, so we're at 283 ships, still serving as a shield of the nation around the globe. We originally, back in the 80s, wanted 600 ships, never got there. The goal now is about 313 ships. We are starting to build those in some numbers, but 283 is what we stand at right now. Over 300,000 on active duty. Some of the other services are currently going through a drawdown of personnel, specifically the Army and the Marine Corps, because of our efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Navy is not going through those types of reductions. Matter of fact, there's a 3-star admiral who's in charge of the surface fleet down in San Diego, and he recently commented that we have about 8,000 holes, gaps for people at sea right now. So we're looking for 8,000 sailors to fill some of those sea duty billets to send our ships to sea. So one of the things I want to make sure that you understand is the Navy's still hiring. It's tougher to come into the Navy these days. We're only looking for some very specific specialties, but we are hiring, and we're looking for the best of the best. One of the other takeaways I want to make sure that you leave here with is that your Navy, as it serves as a shield of the nation, is really stressed, more so than we've been in many, many years. Typically, a lot of you are Navy vets, so you understand this. We used to deploy for 6 months at a time. Then we would come back, we'd take a couple months to rest and refit, take some leave, connect with our families again, start some training, and then get ready for the next deployment. So 6 months away, about 12 months getting ready to go, and then we go out for another 6 months. The Chief of Naval Operations recently came out and said 8 months away, deployed is the new normal. And this summer, for a carrier strike group, the USS Vincent, they will deploy on a scheduled 10-month deployment. So that is very real and having a very real effect on our families as they continue to serve. Sailors are very resilient. They'll do what you tell them to do. But when they go to re-enlist, like sailors coming in at 8:30 this morning, it may be their family, their wife, their kids that tell them, I don't want you to do it again because I don't want you to be away for 10 months. So that's something that we're very, very in tune to and really watching retention very, very closely as we go through this. Yes, ma'am.
So this may be a dumb question, but being that they up the period of time that the service person has to be away, does that change anything else about their length of service, or does it change anything else, or it's just they have to be away longer?
They just have to be away longer.
Maybe do they have to do less rotations, or like do they have to do that very often?
No, actually, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute here, but one of the things that we're seeing is because we have those gaps at sea, what we're looking at is, I'll take an E2 squadron, for example. You've got a squadron that's getting ready to deploy. They don't have all the people that they need, so they turn to a sister squadron and say, hey, I need this kind of mechanic, or I need this kind of technician. So they pull them from that squadron to the deploying squadron. He or she goes out and goes through that deployment, comes back, rotates back to their parent squadron that is not getting ready to deploy. So that cycle is very, very real, and we've seen what that does to sailors and their families. So to answer your question specifically, it does not change anything about their re-enlistment. It doesn't change their assignments and how many years they're at each unit. What it does on the ship side is that we can't do some of the maintenance that we need to do when the ships go out, because there's a very set cycle for ship maintenance. And when they're gone at sea for 10 months, they're not getting some of that maintenance. So it's very critical that we continue to kind of take them offline, fix them, repair them, and then send them back out. Did that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Another question?
Didn't at one time you guys used to do 12-month turnaround?
We did.
Yeah.
We did. And then we realized that we broke the course. Ships were breaking, people were not staying, and we for a long time decided 6 months is about right. And now because of the pivot to the Pacific, and everybody wants Navy ships, everybody wants Navy carriers, everybody wants Seabees. And the Pacific Ocean isn't getting any smaller. There's a real demand for the Navy right now. So I mentioned last year, for those of you that were here, the pivot to the Pacific. So this is a national defense strategy. It's not just the Navy. The entire national defense is really executing a pivot to the Pacific because it's an important area. Large parts of our commerce travel the Pacific Ocean. The influence of China is certainly a factor. So we are executing that pivot to the Pacific. And right now, several years ago, we had 60% of our ships on the East Coast, 40% on the West Coast. Right now, we're realigning. We're about 50-50. 50% of our fleet is on the West Coast, Westpac, and then 50% is in the Atlantic, serving the Mediterranean and Europe. By 2020, we will have 60% of our assets on the West Coast and 40% on the East Coast. Why is that important? Because we're on the West Coast. Fort Hueneme, Naval Base Ventura County, is very unique with an airfield and a deep water port to help as we exercise or execute that pivot to the Pacific. Yes, sir.
So as air units move this way, I would assume to be part of that, will Point Mugu become an operational base in some regard?
Still operational, so we have 4 E2 squadrons.
But I guess in a larger sense of it.
Yes, we are growing, and that's the other theme that I hope I'll leave you with today is we are growing in Naval Base Ventura County. Not only at Point Mugu, but here at Port Hueneme as well. For some of you who have been in before, one of the great things, and I'm sorry I won't take part of it, at least I don't think, is we're gonna send sailors and Marines and base them in Australia. Did you ever get to Australia? I've been trying to get to Australia my entire career, haven't been able to do it. And now they're sending sailors and Marines, over 1,000, this fiscal year in 2014, will establish a base in Australia. Probably, I'm thinking, is gonna be one of the premier duty stations in the Navy. I mentioned the Chinese. The Chinese Navy will actually partner with us and come to RIMPAC, a large exercise that's held in Hawaii, in the waters off of Hawaii in 2014. And then as we execute this pivot to the Pacific, some of our newer ships will be based out in Singapore and Japan. Chief of Naval Operations gave a speech a couple of weeks ago where he talked about some of his priorities going forward. One of them is spectrum management, and that really has to do with being able to communicate. And you all know the effect of cell phones and radios and communications. Well, there was a move afoot to really sell off some of that spectrum because of a lot of companies want to use that spectrum. So we're looking at it possibly as an encroachment, really affecting how we can communicate. So the Chief of Naval Operations has made it one of his priorities to keep the eye of not only the Navy, but of the entire DoD on our ability to communicate. So that's important. But some of the other things that he mentioned was also Navy and Marine Corps integration. For a long time, the Marines have been ashore, usually flying there instead of being on Navy ships, which is our roots. The Marines would come on Navy ships and then deploy and be really a forward deployed force to go ashore if necessary. So we're relearning some of those lessons. And also talked about unmanned systems. We all talk about unmanned aerial systems, drones, but there are also unmanned systems that can travel on the water and under the water. And those will continue to be a focus of effort for the Navy going forward. And then also, we've all heard about global warming and the ice cap. Well, some of that is melting, as we all know, which now for many, many years has allowed us, or we're aware of the fact that that will affect transit patterns through the Arctic. So we're really trying to get our hands around what that means, but also looking to make sure that the Navy is positioned correctly should those sea lanes open the way we expect them to open. In 2013, we, looking back real quick, we had some challenges. I often tell Jim McHugh when I see him out in town, Jim, you didn't tell me about fires and furloughs and sequester. And a lot of you know Jim McHugh, he's quick as a whip. He said, well, Larry, I knew who to call to avoid all that stuff. Well, obviously, you don't know how to do that yet. But we had some challenging times with the Camarillo Springs fire. Obviously affected the entire community, but I was forced at one point to evacuate part of the base because it did come onto the base and actually destroy part of the CB firing range down by Magoo Rock and some other areas. We were very, very fortunate though to be able to put that out and really engage with the community and the cooperative effort, and our firefighters did a tremendous job. But we also went through furloughs. Furloughs basically had a 20% pay cut for a lot of our civilian employees. And they realized that over several months. And then we had sequester, which cut our funding. And at one point we couldn't do grounds maintenance, and we were only doing maintenance that was critical, life safety. But if there was, some broken things on the base that weren't critical, we weren't fixing them. And that really has a potential to affect our mission and the quality of life of our sailors and their families. And then for those of you, some of you may know some folks that live on Port Hueneme, we've had a series of power outages that some planned, others unplanned. And I will share with you, we've got aging infrastructure on the base. The utilities are typically laid out for about a 50-year lifespan. The base started in 1942, so I don't want to do any public math, but you can see that we are due for a recapitalization and improvements of that infrastructure, and it's very, very expensive. So we're doing it in phases, but it has caused us to lose power on the base for several hours at a time, and has affected our ability to continue our mission here. We've got a plan. Now it just takes the funding to make sure that we can continue to execute that. We had some successes. I mentioned Fire Scout. This is an unmanned helicopter. Again, not a big fan as a helicopter pilot because it's going to try and take my job. But it flew. It flew in October of last year. The first time that it flew on the West Coast, it flew out of Point Mugu, and the program is doing very well. We actually have 2 airframes now, and really working through unmanned and manned aircraft at the base in the same airspace, which is a challenge. But again, one of the great things about Naval Base Ventura County is, although we interact with the FAA, when that Fire Scout takes off from Point Mugu, it's already in restricted airspace, so it's not dealing with any kind of commercial traffic, and it's got 36,000 square miles to operate, so a very, very unique capability. We also did some multi-agency terrorism exercises with the 9th Civil Affairs Group, Civil Support Group, excuse me. And that's important because we exercise with elements throughout the entire county. So we did kind of like a panga boat scenario, which we've had here just a couple weeks ago. And then we built on that, where we brought in chemical biological folks from the Army and the National Guard. We partnered with Ventura County, Sheriff, and first responders, really to understand the capabilities of each one of the units, but also, should something like that happen, we won't be starting from scratch. And we'll understand roles and capabilities. Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the planes and helicopter, when you guys are out there flying and testing them around or whatever, because that whole strip is restricted for you guys, right? From, I think, Malibu all the way up towards Santa Barbara.
Right, so the 36,000 square miles, there are blocks of space. So we don't restrict all of it, just where we're working. But that really gives us the flexibility then to conduct our testing without any kind of interference from commercial traffic or others. Some of the things that we were able to accomplish abroad, VAW 117 deployed on an 8-month deployment. They recently came back and are starting their training cycle again. All the battalions deployed, 3, 4, and 5 were deployed last year. Most of the elements of NMCB 3 arrived home yesterday. I greeted them at the airfield. And between now and August, we will have all 3 of the battalions here at Homeport. So what does that mean? You'll probably see a little bit more traffic. You'll probably see, if you use any of the base facilities, the barbershop line will be a little bit longer. But good thing is, you've got a lot of CVs that have been away from home, looking to go out and enjoy meals out on the town, and maybe buying that fancy new truck that they've had their eye on, and enjoying the community. So all 3 battalions will be home between now and August. So that's significant. Next. I'll give you just a quick update on some of the construction projects. You probably can't see some of those, but construction continues on the base. We've got Army amphibious assault ships, LCUs. Again, I'm still trying to figure out why the Army has boats, but they do. We've made a home for them here at Port Hueneme. We're continuing with the project to provide them power from the shore at the piers. Still on track for an expansion of another E2 squadron in 2017 at Point Mugu. Unmanned systems will continue. One specifically, the Triton, is on track, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. And then the Fire Scout that I mentioned will continue to test. We just rehabilitated a hangar, and so they're operating out of that, and that's going well. I saw a hand. Yes, sir.
As you're expanding on the port, the Navy part of the port side, and of course the port is trying to grow their business, do you see any potential friction there in the use of those resources as things develop?
I don't think so. We've got a joint use agreement in place. So myself and Kristen Dekas, matter of fact, I've got her on the cell phone, and we talk probably a couple times a month. And we just had an agreement. We weren't using one of our wharfs. They had a ship coming in. They said, hey, can we use it? There was no Navy ships tied up at the pier, so we said, sure. So they came in, offloaded, and we've been